Good morning, Online Campus. I'm Corey, and I'm joined here today with our broadcast video director, Tyler. Walk me through what that title means. What does a weekend look like for you?
Yeah, so my goal here is to capture what's going on here at Lafayette and put it there online. So no matter where you are in the world, you can experience the same thing that God's doing here at Lafayette, no matter where you are.
I'm gonna let Tyler go as we jump into the rest of the campuses for the very last week of 90,000.
She said every time I close my eyes I feel like I could disappear. I could overflow an ocean with the cavalcade of all my tears. And I know I sound dramatic, but that's just how it feels. She said I'm holding to the notion that I find something real. I just wanna be wanted. Oh, I could use a little love sometimes. I just need to be needed. Oh, like to know I'm crossing someone's mind. I just wanna be someone that somebody needs. I just wanna be more than a drop in the sea. She said I'm counting up my karma and I think it's time to cash it in. So tired of living in the shadow of a mountain of what might have been. And I know it sounds dramatic, but that's just how it feels. I've been looking for somebody to tell me that I'm real. Yeah, I just wanna be wanted. Oh, I could use a little love sometime. I just need to be needed. Oh, like to know crossing someone's mind. I just wanna be someone that somebody needs. I just wanna be more than a drop in the sea. I just need to be needed. I like to know I'm crossing someone's mind.
Well, I want to welcome everybody today. I want to welcome everybody from all of our campuses, and everybody's wondering the same thing. What is happening right now, okay? Is worship going away? Are we just a cover song only church now? And the answer to that is no. We've switched up the flow of service intentionally. We just specifically wanted people to just feel a little awkward as they walk in late, okay? I'm just kidding, okay? If you're here late, seriously, this is when I walk into church. I totally get it. And if you're up at West, I'm just Adam's texting me the people who are walking in late. So just know that. That's for all of our people up at the West Campus where I used to serve. Hey, we're glad that you're here today. This is the way that we're going to wrap up our series 90,000. Glad that everybody can join us. I got two announcements that apply to us just church-wide. The first one is this. Our worship team has written a collection of songs that are inspired by what God's doing in this place and written for people who call this place home. And so they released an album a couple months ago, and they've got a night of worship coming up at our Denver location. If you haven't been to our Denver location, I'm telling you, it's just an unbelievable old church renovated into a chapel. It only seats about 400 people, and they're having a night of worship on October the 10th. That's Thursday, October the 10th. It's a ticketed event simply because our Denver location only holds 400 people. And if everyone from all of our campuses showed up for it, there's no way we'd fit. They'd call the fire department. They'd shut down the church. It would just be a really, really bad thing. And so it's a ticketed event. If you're interested in that, or you're like, Jesse, I love worship. I'm missing it right now, okay? I want the worship. This event might be for you, okay? So make sure that you check that out. You can go to the link online. The second thing that I've got for us, it applies to our series 90,000. 90,000 is the amount of hours that you and I are going to work over the course of our lives. And it's a series we've been in, and we're wrapping up today, but I want to talk to a specific person right now. And this is a person who, for one reason or another, you've been chronically unemployed or underemployed. And I'm sure that you probably had just these feelings as we're talking about work for 3 weeks going, does this apply to me? Or maybe there's feelings of shame, whatever that is. I want you to know as a church, we see you, we hear you, and we care about you, and we want to help. And so we partner with this ministry called Thrive. And Thrive doesn't really need too much of an introduction because we've talked about Thrive a lot around here. But here's all that I'll tell you about Thrive. Thrive has a proven formula to help people who are chronically unemployed or underemployed find employment, be able to provide for themselves, okay? Here's what they do, okay? They have relationships with businesses that are hiring and then with people who are prospective employees. Then two, what they do is they provide the training that you need. And then three, they partner you up with a mentor, a work mentor, who's gonna help you just walk through the next year alongside of you. It's a proven formula that just works, okay? We've seen it work time after time after time. So two things on this. If you're either someone who is chronically unemployed or underemployed, or you know somebody like that, check out these slides. The first one is the next training dates. It's October 14th through the 17th. Okay, take a picture of that if that's for you or if that's for somebody that you care about. So we've got a training coming up soon. But then also the next slide just has contact information. So if you've got questions, you can email them. If the training this coming week fills up, you can actually email them or call them and get more information. All right, we want you to know we see you, we hear you, and we want to help. We love you guys, okay? Thrive is just doing an unbelievable job, and I can't wait to see how they help some of the people that this church really cares about. So like I said, we're jumping into the last week of our series, 90,000. Before we do that, let me pray for us. God, across all of our campuses right now, God, I just pray that you would, you would begin to prepare our hearts for what you want to teach us. God, the message today, it's not just for people who are working or who are not, who are successful and who are not. God, this message is for all of us. And so, God, I just pray that you would prepare us. God, I pray that you would open our hearts to what you want to teach us today. God, we love you. We are so grateful for you and the work that your son Jesus did on the cross for us. And it's in his name that we pray. Amen.
All right. Hi. We good? Nice. Okay. Oh, claps. One clap. Thank you for one clap. Okay. I tricked you into that one. Hey, I'm Ben. I'm the teaching pastor here. Very glad you're here today. Let's jump into this today. This is our final week of our series, 90,000. This is our series that we've been talking about work. Like Jesse just said, this is 90,000 represents the average amount of hours that you'll spend at your job in a lifetime, right? That's 1/4 of your waking life. And so we're like, well, since that's so much time, maybe we should figure out what God has to say to us about it. Like, what is work supposed to be? How does it, what role is it supposed to play in my life? In the last few weeks, I think we've been learning some cool stuff. Right? We've learned like how and why God gave us work as a gift. We've learned that work is a way that we serve other people. We learned, last week Jesse taught us that amongst other things, like, being patient and loving and merciful and kind. In addition to that, like simply being great at your job is a very Jesus-like thing that you can do at work. And so we've been learning all this cool stuff. But today is kind of like the most important one. All right, today is the thing that if we don't get today right, then none of the other stuff that we learned will last for very long. It won't be very sustainable. And that's because today we're going to talk about the fact that who we are without work matters. All right, in other words, our true identities, knowing who we truly are without looking to our work to tell us, it matters. So, we start losing our true identities early. We do this when we're little. Like we start losing this true sense of who we actually are, and it gets replaced with all these bad identities. Like, there's this phase of life, all of us went through it. Everyone goes through it. All right, it's this phase of life that starts when you're really little, you're young. My two oldest kids, they're 6 and they're 4, and they're going through this phase right now. It's like something clicks in your little kid brain, and you tell yourself, like, maybe if I'm mean to other people, this will make me feel better about myself. And so you start trying it. You try to be mean to other people, but you're also little, and so you're clumsy at it. Like, you're not very good at being mean yet. You don't know how to really stick it to someone yet. And so what do? You start name calling. Right, that's always kind of the first phase of being mean to other people. You call them names, right? But still, you're little. You're not even good at that yet. So your names aren't like mean. They're just weird. That's what Emery and Micah are going through right now. Again, they're 6 and they're 4, and they'll get so mad at each other. They'll call each other names, but their names aren't mean. They're just strange names that they've come up with. So they'll get like so mad at each other, right? And it'll escalate and escalate. And then until finally Micah, usually it's Micah, will explode. And it's genuine anger. You can tell he's really feeling genuinely angry. And you'll look at Emery and just go, Emery, you're just such a... And he thinks, and he can't think of anything mean. And so he just starts cataloging all of like the gross words he knows. And so he'll finally come up with something. Here's one he's actually used. He goes, Emery, you're a stinky foot brain. And then he'll like mic drop, And you can always see like 3 emotions flash through his face, like in a matter of a split second. The first one is pride. He's like, yeah, got her. And then the second one is always sadness, because he's kind of a sweet kid. So you can tell he's like, I can't believe I just said that to my sister, my own blood and kin, And then it switches to fear, which is like, did dad hear that? Because if dad heard it, I'm in trouble. And he is in trouble, but at the same time, it's hard for me to discipline in moments like that because I just want to laugh at what has just happened. So I have to fight from like pulling him aside and being like, Micah, listen, first of all, high five. That was a sick burn, very creative. Second of all, let's not call each other names. So we start calling each other names. We're trying to be mean, right? We're trying to rob people of their identities. And we do this at a very, very early age. And sometimes we do it intentionally, like Micah just did. Other times we do it unintentionally. Like I'll never forget the first time I cussed. Because the first time I cussed, it was an accident. And I had accidentally cussed out my neighbor friend, Jeremy. All right, so here's what that looked like. I'm like 7 or 8, I think. And Jeremy and I, he's a little bit older. We're playing basketball in my driveway. And Jeremy beats me in a game of one-on-one basketball, which I know it's like super hard to imagine someone of my towering stature being beat in basketball, but it happened occasionally. So it was an upset, and he won. And I turned to him and I go, Jeremy, you're such a, and I call him a name. Now, what I didn't realize in the moment is I was cussing Jeremy out. See, I had watched a lot of cartoons growing up, and I could have sworn that Yosemite Sam had said this word. I thought Yosemite Sam said it. It wasn't until a few weeks later that I was watching Yosemite Sam, and I was like, oh, he's saying the word dastardly Okay, I had gotten that word confused with a very similar sounding word that starts with a B. And so that's what I called Jeremy. So he beats me in this basketball game, and I look at Jeremy and go, Jeremy, you're such a dastard. But I say the version with a B. Well, Jeremy's older, he's 10. He's a man of the world and a man of the culture. And he knows what this word means. And so he starts crying and he runs back home, and I'm so confused. So I actually go back into my mom and tell her about it because I'm so clueless as to what just happened. I'm like, Mom, so weird thing just happened. I'm joking around with Jeremy. He starts crying, he runs home. And she's like, well, what'd you say? And I'm, again, matter-of-factly, I'm just like, well, I called him a dastard. Again, the B version. And it's the first time she's heard me cuss. And so she's like, Ben, where did you hear that word? And I'm like, Mom, Yosemite Sam, chill out, She explained, what I had done. I felt terrible. I apologized to Jeremy because I had hurt his feelings. We do this at a very, very early age. We start to call each other names. But if you think about what we're actually doing when we do that, you realize it's kind of messed up. Because what we're doing, even at a young age, is we're robbing people of their true identities, and we're replacing them with really bad identities. What we're doing is we're saying, hey, you're not Jeremy to me. You're not Emery to me. You're not an individual, a valuable person in my life. Instead, you are a fill in the blank with a bad identity. We're robbing people of their identities and replacing them with bad ones. Of course, I'm talking about the more innocent, juvenile version of name calling right now, but here's the truth, right? There are some names that you and I have been called, some ways in which we've been defined, usually at a very early age, and they've stuck around, haven't they? They've stuck around even into adulthood. These definitions of who we are, these bad identities that we took on, they aren't cute and they aren't funny and they still hurt to this day. And you and I have spent a lifetime trying to prove those names wrong, or we've just sunk into the defeat of those names, those bad definitions of who we are. I'll give you an example. I'll tell you one of mine, all right? So one of the names I took on at an early age, a bad identity that I took on was I am weak. I'm weak. I grew up shorter and scrawnier than all the other kids that were my age. And so, it's like you hit middle school, everyone, all the guys start playing football, they hit the gym, they lift weights, they're getting big, they're growing beards. And I was always kind of like in the corner, like, would you like to run track or start a punk band with me? And then I got bullied and picked on and stuff. And so that was a name that I took on at an early age, a bad identity. I am weak. And it has stuck with me until today. And I hate to admit it, but I've spent the better part of 34 years of my life trying to prove that name's wrong, to prove that I am not weak. I didn't do that through physical accomplishment. I looked to other accomplishments to rename me and redefine me, To prove that I'm not weak, I gotta be the funniest person in the room, or the smartest person, or the most creative, or the hardest worker. It's interesting because I struggle with depression, which I've talked about in here before, but my depression is one that rarely feels like sadness for a long time. Because sadness in my mind is weak, and I don't want to feel weak. And so if you have depression, you know what it's like when that heavy outside of you sadness starts to set in. It doesn't take me long to go, you know what? Nope, I'm not sad, right? Because sad is weak, and I'm not weak. Instead, I'm just angry. I jump right to anger. I'm angry because angry feels strong. That's one of mine. I am weak. What's yours? What name were you called early on? What bad identity have you carried around for years? I don't know what yours is. Maybe dad didn't stick around, or mom didn't stick around, or neither one of them stuck around. So you got a name early on. I am what? I am unwanted. It's just like that song the band just played. Sometimes you just want to be wanted. And so you spent the rest of your life trying to prove that name wrong by overcompensating in life, or you spent life just sinking into the defeat of that definition of who you are. Yep, that's all I am. I'm unwanted. If that hits the nail on the head for you, I'm sorry, that sucks. But what is yours? What is your bad identity that you've taken on? Maybe you took it on recently. Right, that you fight against it every day. Well, I want you to think about it actually right now. I am what? I'm ugly. I am forgettable. I'm easy. I'm annoying. I'm stupid. I'm worthless. I'm a bad parent. I'm a bad spouse. What is yours? And whatever it is, I'm sorry because that sucks. But I do want you to think of it. Fill in that blank with the bad identity right now. I am what? That thing you've been carrying around for your whole life. Think about it right now and keep it in your head, because we're going to come back to it at the end of this thing. All right, so now why am I talking about any of this in the first place during 90,000, which is supposed to be our series on work? Well, here's why. When we're kids, we try to prove those names wrong by acting out or standing out or dishing it back or whatever. But when we grow up, we become adults, we grow up, and the number one way that we try to prove those names wrong is through our work. And to remind you the broader definition of that word for the series, I mean through your accomplishments. All right, so for probably most of us in the room, our careers and our jobs are the main way that we're doing that. If you're not earning a paycheck, maybe you're trying to prove that identity wrong through your work in grad school, or your accomplishments as a parent, or your accomplishments in your hobby, trying to be a great photographer, a great artist, whatever. We got these bad identities we're carrying around, and we're looking to work to rename us, our own accomplishments to redefine us. We need work to tell us who we are. Some of us might be skeptical, or we're not connecting the dots, right? We're going, sounds like a bit of a stretch. Like, I don't think I'm trying to find my identity in my accomplishments. I hope that's the case, but I think that most often we are. We just don't realize we're doing it yet. So let me give us some signs of whether a person is looking for their identity in what they can do, their identity in their accomplishments. You just see if it sounds familiar or not. Right, the first sign that we're looking for our identity in our accomplishments is this. When we need work to tell us who we are, success goes to our heads. Success goes to our heads. It inflates our heads. We get a sense of pride. Why? Because we need success, right? We need the recognition, and we need the results, and we need the promotions. Why? Because we need to be renamed. We're trying to get rid of these bad identities. We're looking at work to do that for us. And so when we are recognized, or we are celebrated, or we are promoted, it's like this adrenaline rush. It feels so good. And we tell ourselves that's exactly what we needed. And we tell ourselves, see, there's the proof. I'm not weak, and I'm not stupid or unwanted anymore. I'm not a failure. Why? Because I'm a success. And so then success becomes addictive. This is why we become workaholics. All right, I'm one, so there's no judgment from me right now, but let's face it, guys, this is why we become workaholics, because if you take work away from us, we don't know who we are anymore. We need it. Specifically, we need the success at work, and so we work harder, and we work later, and we neglect our families, and we start killing ourselves trying to get the next addicting shot of success into our arms. We're looking at our accomplishments, our jobs, and we're saying, please work. Tell me I'm not a failure. When we need work to tell us who we are, success goes to our heads. Another sign that we're looking for our identity in our accomplishments is how we handle failure. Because when we need work to tell us who we are, failure goes to our hearts, straight to our hearts. This is why the criticism or the demotions or the layoffs were devastating. This is why when we fail at work, we think we are failing in general. Why? Because our jobs have become our identities. And so when work goes poorly, we think life goes poorly. It hurts our hearts. Our actual identities take a hit. For example, when you reach December, it's right around the corner. You get to December, you realize you didn't hit your quota, or you didn't cover your overhead, or you're not getting your year-end bonus. How do you handle it? Do you use your head? And do you think it through? And do you go, okay, not good, but what have I learned? And how do I adapt? And how do I adjust? Do you think about it with your head, or does it go straight to your heart? If you're anything like me, it goes straight to your heart, right? There's no learning or adjusting or adapting. And instead, I'm just telling myself, like, Ben, what have you done? And I tell myself, look, dude, there's the proof, right? You are weak. You are stupid. You are a failure. They were right about you. They've been right about you forever. We look to our accomplishments, our jobs, and we say, please work. Tell me I'm a success. When we need work to tell us who we are, the success goes to our heads and the failure goes to our hearts. One more sign that we're looking for our identity and our accomplishment, and then we'll move on. It's this: when we need work to tell us who we are, we can't stop comparing ourselves to other people. We can't stop it. Maybe this sounds familiar, right? Maybe you're in sales, okay, and you've had your best year yet. But at the same time, Joe Schmo with the $1 million smile down the hall, he did better than you, right? So here's you, best year yet. Here's Joe Schmo. What are you? Oh, I'm not good enough. Or maybe you're a stay-at-home mom, right? You finally got the kids in bed, and sure, the house is a wreck, and sure, you didn't give them baths, but you had a pretty good day. You took them to the zoo. You had fun, right? So get a glass of wine. You settle in on the couch and try to wind down. You open up Instagram, and guess what? Nancy Fancy with the schmancy house down the street, right? She took her kids to the zoo, and she kept her house clean, and she gave them a bath, and she taught her toddlers arithmetic or whatever that day, right? So like here you are, you had a good day, and then you see Nancy Schmancy, who's just killing it. And what are you now? I'm not good enough. Right? When we need work, when we need our accomplishments to tell us who we are, we can't stop comparing ourselves to others, and we read other people's success as our own failure. Just so you know, just to let you into my life a little bit, I want you to know I'm not exempt from this. All right? I'm always going to struggle with finding my identity in being a pastor and a teacher, but a few years ago especially, I was like cruising down this spiral. Because one of the things that's weird about my job is I give these sermons, all right? These sermons get posted online for like thousands of people all over the world to watch, and they leave comments on these videos. And so it's weird because I basically get reviewed by people I'll never meet in my entire life, just like you'd review a movie or you'd review an album. And when I first started this teaching pastor role a few years ago, I found myself getting on those videos and reading all of those comments, like reading all of them. All right? Some of them were good for a laugh, because people will say the weirdest stuff on there. I really liked the ones, this happens more often than you'd think. Someone is like trying to encourage or whatever, and they're trying to say that they've been going to the church for a lot of years, but they also can't remember any of the pastors' names. That was one of my favorite. That happens all the time. Someone will be like, Flatirons is fantastic. I've been going for 20 years, and the lead pastor, Todd Bergen, is a wonderful man. And you're like, how do you not know his name's Jim? Some of them are good for a laugh, but I would get on these videos and I would read, there'd be comments, like, great job, Ben, or really incredible teaching, Pastor Ben, thank you. And what would happen? It would go to my head, if I'm being honest. It would feel good. I'd get a little bit of a pride in my heart, and then I'd look at it and go, see, there's the proof. Look, you're not a failure. You're not weak. But then there'd be dozens of those comments. And then John Kay from Detroit or wherever would chime in, and he would be like, who is this guy? He looks like he's 16. I'll never listen to him again. And what would happen? It would go to my heart. Like immediately, it would hurt really, really bad. And I'd feel sick inside. And I'd look at it and I'd go, see, there's the proof, right? You are a failure. You are weak. And so now I got to go read more to feel better about myself. It sounds disturbing because it is, It was like this sick, disturbing, emotional roller coaster of like, you're great as a person. Oh, you suck as a person. You're great. You suck. Up and down, up and down. Why? Because I needed my accomplishments to tell me who I am. I was looking at my job and saying, please, Flatirons, tell me I'm not a failure. It was crippling. So one day I feel like God smacked me over the head with some common sense, and he was just like, don't read those comments anymore, you doof. Like, what are you doing to yourself? So I quit. I haven't read them in about over a year. That's just not healthy for me. I was looking to work my accomplishments to tell me who I am. We're all doing this in some form, in some fashion. We take on these bad identities, we're trying to get rid of them, and we're looking to work our own accomplishments to do that for us. Please work. Please what I can accomplish. Tell me I'm not a failure. We need work to tell us who we are. The truth, though, is that work is letting us down. Success in your job, success in your accomplishments, it's fickle, right? It's here today, it's gone tomorrow. It's success and then it's failure. And the big wins, they're few and far between. You can't count on them. And so our accomplishments are going like this, and so are our identities. And so what is the solution here? How do we fix this problem? Well, the solution is that we need something or someone who is stronger and louder than the voices of our accomplishments and the voices of the people who hurt you when you were younger, your parents, your siblings, whoever name called you and gave you a bad identity. We need a voice that is louder and stronger than those voices to tell us who we truly are. In other words, who we are without work matters. Who we are outside of work matters. We got to understand our true identities, or none of this other stuff falls into place. See, if we do understand who we are without work needing to tell us, then we can handle success and we can handle failure in healthy ways. They're just indicators, right? They're not heart-crushing or addicting because we know who we are. And so who is the one voice that is louder and stronger than the ones who have name-called us and given us bad identities? Well, cutting through the deafening roar of accusations and names you've been called and your success and your failure and your accomplishments or your lack of them, cutting through that is one constant voice. And he says this: He says, but now thus says the Lord. So this is what God has to say to you. He who created you and he who formed you. He says, fear not, for I've redeemed you and I've called you by your name. I don't call you by the names you call yourself. I call you by your name, and you are mine. We've been carrying around these bad identities. We're looking to work and accomplishment to rename us. And meanwhile, we have this God who says, I don't measure you based on your performance. I measure you based on Jesus' performance, which means I don't call you weak, and I don't call you stupid, and I don't call you bad father or worthless or forgettable. I don't call you any of those names. I call you your name. I just call you Ben, and you are mine. What do we need? We need Jesus to tell us who we are, and we need to look to his accomplishments, not our own, to find our identities. So what did he accomplish for us, and who does he say we are? All right, in terms of what he accomplished for us, that's what our next series is about. Okay, we're gonna spend a couple weeks building up to baptism, talking about some of the foundational things that Jesus has done for us and what that means for our lives, all right? But in short for today, here's what you gotta know. Here's what Jesus has done for you. He's taken all of your failures, everything from the past, everything from the future, your guilt, your shame, your selfishness, you name it. He's taken all of your failures. The Bible word for that is sin, and he put that sin to death when he was nailed on a cross. And because he's put that sin to death and it doesn't factor in anymore, he now looks at us and he says, from now on, I reserve the sole right to define who you are. He goes, that's my job now. He goes, from now on, I am the only one who gets to call you names. What are the names that he calls us? Well, it might sound familiar from a few weeks ago, but it's important, and so we're driving it home. It says this, how great is the love the Father has lavished on us. So how awesome is God as a Father that this happened, that we should be called children of God, and that is what we are. That is our true identity, and if we could start there, looking to Jesus and his accomplishment and who he says we are for our true identities, if we could start there, everything else falls into place. You know, when you think of work, for example, success isn't a lifeline anymore. It's not addictive anymore. It's just an indicator that you're on the right track. So keep it up, keep on trucking. All right? Failure isn't heartbreaking or crushing anymore. Just an indicator that you're on the wrong track. Learn, adapt, adjust, keep on trucking. The comparison game becomes a moot point. Why? Because I know who I am. I don't need to compare myself to anyone else. I know that I'm a son or I'm a daughter of the living and good God. If you know who you are without work, without your accomplishments needing to tell you, everything else falls in line, everything in life in general. If that still feels abstract, and you're like, well, how could knowing that and living out of that place change my life? Let me tell you a story because I think it'll tie it together for us. So my two kids, oldest kids, Emery and Micah. Again, Emery's older, she's 6. Micah is younger, he's 4, okay? So the other day, this is last week, we're doing a puzzle together. And if I'm being for real with you, I hate doing puzzles with my kids. It's basically torture. Like, I have to bite my tongue the whole time from being like, you know, really, guys? Like, we're gonna put an edge piece in the middle of this bad boy for real? Like, that's how we're gonna do this thing? So I think hell will just be making puzzles with small children for an eternity. But I put a smile on, and I'm doing this puzzle with him. It's like a 100-piece dinosaur puzzle, whatever. Again, Micah's 4, he's younger, but he's super smart. He's ahead of the curve in that way. On top of that, he's done this puzzle a million times, so he's just cruising, all right? He's like click, 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 putting this puzzle together. Now, Emery, she's older, she's 6, she's struggling with it. She just can't seem to find any of the right pieces, and she's like, you know, turning them upside down and folding them in half and stuff. She like cannot do this puzzle. She's getting really frustrated. Finally, she just kind of huffs and she points at the puzzle box and she goes, Dad, what's that number mean? And in the bottom corner of the puzzle box was one of those ages 3+ tags. You know, so I explained to her, I go, well, Emery, that means that this puzzle is a good puzzle for anyone who's 3 years old or older. And you could see like wheels turning in her head. You know, and you could see her go, well, I'm 6, and this is a puzzle for 3-year-olds. And you could see her connecting these dots, and her eyes get all watered up, and she just starts crying. And honestly, in the moment, it really did break my heart. Because it's like, even though she's too little to articulate it, I could tell that what she was feeling was stupid. And I know that feeling. It's one of my greatest fears. I don't ever want to be the stupidest person in the room. And you could just see, even in this little 6-year-old girl, you could see this human nature bent toward comparison. She's comparing herself to Micah, and she's not measuring up. And you could see this human nature bent towards finding a sense of self in your accomplishments. You could see her going like, I'm the 6-year-old who can't do a 3-year-old puzzle. I'm not good enough. Now, by no means am I a perfect dad, all right? Far from it. But from my point of view, as her father, do you think my evaluation of Emery's identity goes down because she's struggling with the task at hand? Do you think I define her identity or want her to define herself based on what she can and cannot do? And do you think I start calling her names like stupid and not good enough and bad daughter? No. Why? Because she's mine. That's my kid. That's my Emery. She's my daughter. I am her father. I love her. She's good enough for me, and that's that. You and I, because of Jesus, have the perfect version of that when it comes to our relationship with God as a perfect father. He looks at you and he says, listen, I don't call you by the names you call yourself. I call you by your name, and you are mine. You are my son. You are my daughter. I am your father. I love you. You're good enough for me, and that's that. And if we were to live out of that place, then everything else begins to change. And so here's what we're going to do today. We're going to practice this. We're going to practice starting in that place and living out of that identity. One of my favorite descriptions of who God is found in Psalm 3. And Psalm 3 goes like this. It says, you, O Lord, are a shield about me, so you protect me. All right, and you're my glory. You're the most valuable thing I have in my life. And you're the lifter of my head. You're the lifter of my head. And it's this image of God as a perfect father going up to all of his sons and daughters of any age, that's us, going up to his kids who have their heads hung in defeat. And it's this image of him putting his finger under your chin and lifting your head. All right, back to true confidence and true security and a true sense of identity. And so here's what we're going to do right now. I'm going to ask that you do something with me. Everyone close your eyes and then hang your head. All right, maybe bow your head like you're going to pray, or put your head in your hands or whatever. Assume the position of defeat. Remember at the beginning of this thing, I told you to think of the bad identities that you've been carrying around your whole life, that you're carrying around on a daily basis. I want you to think about that right now. I promise I'm not going to leave you here, but for right now, think about it. What name have you been called, or have you called yourself for years now? I am what? I am stupid, weak, worthless, unimportant, unwanted, ugly, unlovable. What is your bad identity? Think about it right now. In your head, say it to yourself like you've been saying for years. And let it sink in. The fact that you've been carrying that name around for decades. And now here's what we're going to do. Keep your eyes closed. Keep your head hung. I'm going to start to tell you what God says about you. I'm going to walk us through our true identities based on what Jesus has accomplished for us, all right? What I'm asking you to do is, when you're ready to listen to a voice that is louder and is stronger than the one that has defined you for years, when you're ready to listen to God's definition of who you are instead of your own, then you are simply going to open your eyes and lift your heads. All right, this is what God says of you. Because of God, or because of Jesus, God says you are forgiven. You're forgiven. You are not your guilt and shame. You are not defined by your past. Your mistakes and your outright failures are not a factor in your relationship with Him. God says you're forgiven. Because of Jesus, God says you are free. You are not a slave to the bad identity that you have in your head right now. You are not a slave to your family history. You are not a slave to your success or a slave to your failures, because God says you are free. Because of Jesus, God says you are treasured and you're valued, which means you're not forgettable. It means you are not overlooked and you are not unwanted, and that's because your God says you are treasured and you're valued. Because of Jesus, God says that you are here on purpose and you're here for a purpose, which means you are not a mistake. You are not some accident of the cosmos. Your life is not inconsequential in this universe. And that's because God says you are here on purpose and for a purpose. Because of Jesus, God says you are loved. It says it doesn't matter what you think. You're not hated, all right? You're not irredeemable and you're not too far gone. And that's because your God says you are loved. And then last one for today, because of Jesus, God says you are worth dying for, which means you are not worthless. Not in God's eyes. You are worth a very great price, and he paid it. And that is because God says you are worth dying for. So everyone, open your eyes and lift your heads. And look at that screen and read those words. That is who you are. As you read those words, listen to me. I promise that is who you are. All right? That is who you are when you are single and lonely and you're eating dinner alone again. That is who you are when you're married with kids and you're claustrophobic. That is who you are when you get the promotion. That is who you are when you get laid off. That is who you are when you are addicted and afflicted and ashamed. And that is who you are when you're ignored and abused and refused. That is who you are. No ifs, ands, or buts. End of story. It's finished. That is who you are, and that's that. When we hang our heads in defeat, God doesn't put a finger in our chest. He puts a finger under our chins and he lifts our heads and he says, eyes on me. Keep your head up and put your shoulders back. I am your confidence. I am your strength. I am your victory. And I am the one who gets to tell you who you are. And I say that you are mine. You are my son. You are my daughter. I'm your father. I love you no matter what. And that's that. So chin up and head high and eyes on him. For the next few minutes, we're gonna practice that. We're about to pass out communion. I don't want you to take it yet. I'll walk us through that in a minute. But as communion is being passed out, let's practice this thing of lifting our heads. Band is gonna play a few verses from this song. Don't even sing it yet. Just sit and listen and read the words on screen and reflect. Chin up, heads high, eyes on him. The words of this song, they outline what Jesus has accomplished for us so that we can be called sons and daughters of the living and good God. So just read the lyrics. Tell God thank you for what he's done, because he's greater than your successes, he's stronger than your failures, and he's louder than the voice that's trying to define you. So chin up, head high, and eyes on him. And in a minute, I'll jump back up here and we'll take communion.
In the darkness, we were waiting without hope, without light, till from heaven you came running. There was mercy in your eyes to fulfill the law and prophets. To a virgin came the word, from a throne of endless glory to a cradle in the dirt. Praise the Father, praise the Son, praise the Spirit, three in one. God of glory, majesty, praise forever to the King of Kings. To reveal the kingdom coming and to reconcile the lost, to redeem the whole creation. You did not despise For even in your suffering, you saw to the other side, knowing this was our salvation. Jesus, for our sake you died. So we praise the Father, praise the Son, praise the Spirit, three in one. God of glory, majesty, praise forever to the King of Kings.
So everyone stand up with me. So the words in that song and the words in all the songs we're about to sing, they outline exactly what Jesus has done for you. And because he's accomplished that for us, he looks at us and he says, I'm the only one who gets to tell you who you are. I'm the only one who gets to call you names. And the identity that he gives us is so good. And so chin up and head high and eyes on him. In a minute, we'll take communion, and there's nothing magical about communion, all right? It's symbolic, it's a reminder. Communion is a reminder that Jesus thought you were worth dying for, and so he did. When we eat the bread, that's a reminder of Jesus' body, which was broken and it was beaten and it was nailed to a cross for us. When we take the juice, it's a reminder of Jesus' blood, right, which was poured out and it was spilled out, it was crusted in the dirt under the cross for us. And when we take communion, this is our way of saying to Jesus, Jesus, we won't forget that. We will remember what you have done for us, and we'll remember who you say we are because of that. So I'm gonna pray, and then after I pray, together, as this ragtag group of messy and broken and figuring it out, but forgiven and free people, we're gonna take communion, and we're gonna remember that. And then we're gonna sit in here, and instead of rushing out the door to the very next thing, we're gonna tell God thank you by singing some of these songs to him. So pray with me. God, we have been carrying these bad names, these bad identities around for our entire lives. You know, some of us, probably most of us, we don't even know what it looks like to live without that. We don't know what it looks like to live without that I am statement, that bad identity. God, what I'm praying for right now over the next few minutes and throughout the week and throughout the rest of our lives, God, can you please do something that no sermon is articulate enough to do and no song is beautiful enough to do? Can you do what only you can do, which is take the truth from our heads and put it down into our hearts? God, can you redefine us today? God, can you show us what it looks like to sit in our true identity, the fact that we're loved, we're free, we're forgiven, we're treasured, we're valued, we're worth dying for, and so you did. God, I thank you for being the God who does that. Do it today. God, I love you so much, and I'm thankful so much for your son, Jesus Christ. As we take communion, it's him that we remember, and it's what he's accomplished that we remember. We thank you so much for him, and it's in his holy name that we pray. Jesus Christ, amen.
In the morning that you rose, all of heaven held its breath, till that stone was moved for good, for the Lamb had conquered death. And the dead rose from their tombs, and the angels stood in awe, for the souls of all who'd come to the Father are restored, and the church of Christ was born. Then the Spirit lit the flame. Now this gospel truth of old shall not kneel, shall not faint. By his blood and
creation, everything with breath, repeat the sound. All His children, clean hands, pure hearts, good grace, good God. His name is Jesus. Just swing wide, all you heavens, let the praise go up as the walls come down. All creation, everything with breath, repeat the sound. All His children, clean hands, pure hearts, good grace, good God. His name is Jesus. Swing wide, oh, swing wide, all you heavens, let the praise go up as the walls come down. All creation, everything with breath, repeat the sound. All His children, clean hands, good hearts, good grace, good God. His name is Jesus. We say, oh, 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 So swing wide, all you heavens, let the praise go up as the walls come down. All creation, everything with breath, repeat the sound. All His children, clean hands, pure hearts, good grace, good God. His name is Jesus. Oh, Jesus, Jesus, our redemption, our salvation is in His blood. Jesus, light of heaven, friend forever, His kingdom come. Yeah.
Oh my, that the highest King would welcome me. I was lost, but He brought me in. Oh, His love for me. Oh, His love for me. Come on, sing this out. Who the Son sets free, oh, is free indeed. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am. Free at last, He has ransomed. His grace runs. While I was a slave to sin, Jesus died free. Take that truth into your week. Live that way this week, and we'll see you back here next time.